What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you, but this one is an auction draft and it is a 12-team PPR setup, so it should be pretty interesting. We've already done one of these, so wanted to go ahead and add, for a little bit more reference, another one, maybe switch up the strategies a little bit, and that's exactly what we will do today. Before we get into it, however, a quick reminder, go ahead, check out the all-new website at alldaypigskin.com for some exclusive content. And also, while you're there, go ahead and get yourself a copy of the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Great price, everything you could possibly want, all the details in the description, but it's got everything from top 150 overall player rankings and standard PPR formats to player bios, tiers, guys to target, guys to avoid, along with other bits. So again, all the details in the description. But let's get into this draft because it has kicked off. The first player has been nominated in Christian McCaffrey. And the nice thing is we've got a pretty full draft room here. By the looks of it, only one person on auto. So this will be a pretty accurate representation in terms of getting a pulse of what players are actually valued at and how individuals see that, whether it's accurate or not. Because, for example, Christian McCaffrey here valued at $70. The highest bid and the winning bid was at $73. But just for an example, we did the last auction draft where we were a bit more aggressive. I believe we wound up with Alvin Kamara and potentially Ezekiel Elliott, if memory serves correct. But that was a little bit different because on another platform, like Yahoo, let's say, for example, pricing would be different. So one of the main reasons I wanted to do this today on ESPN is to go ahead and keep some of those prices the same in terms of when we're comparing strategies, things like that. And I'll tell you right now, what I want to do is maybe try and be a little bit more conservative. So potentially we can go ahead and get a couple of guys like a Josh Jacobs here or a Miles Sanders, etc., etc. But the price has gotten a little bit high for Josh Jacobs per at least ESPN's rankings and pricing. So I'm going to go ahead and judge it on that because, again, if you're going platform to platform, there will be major differences. And using Yahoo as an example, because I have done some auction drafts on there as well, a Christian McCaffrey could go close to $80 there. A Josh Jacobs would be around $50. So in theory, I think Josh Jacobs going for $43 here is a pretty good value, and we could have gotten in on it. But there's some other players here, especially PPR format, that I'm very all right landing, like an Austin Eckler, for example. But let's go ahead and let's scroll down on these running back rankings and see where some of them fall under, because Josh Jacobs going for $43 is pretty nice, actually, all things considered, when the starting price or the projected price for an Austin Eckler is $44. Joe Mixon ranked kind of low at $42. That's a bit surprising. Usually goes in the 50s around, again, using Yahoo as an example. But this is also the first auction draft that we have put up since the Clyde Edwards-Helaire news broke. And as you can see, his ranking has been adjusted. His price has been adjusted here, now valued at $46. And you know what? I bet you that he will go ahead and go for more than that, because many people, if you treat this as a snake draft, something like that, well, he's going to go ahead and be a borderline surefire first round pick. And if that's the case, well, you could argue that his draft price should be closer to $50, if not $55. So again, just pointing out some of these things, maybe some inconsistencies here and there. But again, this will vary from platform to platform. And naturally, there will be an upbids type of situation depending on the people you are drafting with. So just basically what we're trying to say is know the people you're drafting with, if that's a possibility. Know their tendencies, and if they value, let's say, the running back position a lot, as we tend to nowadays, then know that some of those running backs are going to be overvalued, and that there will be bidding wars on them. But since we are going ahead and, as you can see, kind of being a little bit more conservative, well, we can go ahead and stay out of some of these initial bidding wars and let some of these heavy hitters go ahead and go off the board. I'm perfectly all right with that. What I actually should have done is I kind of missed the chance, but when Ezekiel Elliott was being nominated, that was actually our auto nomination. I should have gone ahead and nominated someone like a Patrick Mahomes, something like that. But that's all right. You know, Ezekiel Elliott would have been nominated sooner or later. But again, it basically gets back to the point of nominate a player that you don't want, so someone else can go ahead and spend their money. That is always the case with these auction drafts. And again, $67 for Ezekiel Elliott, someone spending that much money. Also for Alvin Kamara and Saquon Barkley, that's actually pretty consistent. $67 for all of them. Christian McCaffrey going the highest for $73. Usually Saquon Barkley is right around Christian McCaffrey's value. So I guess from that perspective, that's pretty good pricing for Saquon Barkley, whoever landed him. But we're going to go ahead and kind of sit this one out initially, because one of the main reasons I want to try a bit of a conservative approach is because with the landscape in sports being what it is right now with COVID, well, there's probably going to be a lot more names popping up on these IR COVID lists that the NFL has that you've already seen names pop up on and players opt out, aka the biggest recent opt out, the Damian Williams news, and why Clyde Edwards-Helaire has skyrocketed up in value. But because of these things happening, well, there's going to be a lot of leagues where a popular approach nowadays is to go ahead and expand the roster size, add an IR spot as well. So that tells you that maybe this year would be a little bit better suited to be conservative and to build up depth in auction drafts. Now, sure, that's going to be a big part of the waiver wire itself. And Michael Thomas just went for $48, which is absolutely insane, because I believe his pre-draft value was somewhere around, I believe, $60. If DeAndre Hopkins was $59, Michael Thomas just went for $48. That's one of those big steals in the draft. But the reason, again, going back to why we want to focus in a little bit more on depth is because it's going to happen. People are going to get sick. They're going to miss 2 to 3 weeks. And when that happens, well, what's going to happen if you went ahead and, spent up all that money on a Christian McCaffrey or someone else? Well, it's kind of going to go by the wayside, because, okay, that's nice and dandy that you did, but your top player misses 2-3 weeks, and all of a sudden you're kind of out of luck. But if you went maybe and got some more depth, got some more bench players that you can go ahead and insert. Now, obviously, there's no guarantee that those guys won't also end up on those IR/COVID lists. Anything can happen. But again, trying to ensure yourself in really a year that's unprecedented, unlike any other. And this really will be the year of the backup if it already hasn't. And you're going to see second, third string, maybe even fourth string guys, especially at the running back position, get a lot of chances. And like we alluded to before, the waiver wire is going to be absolutely crazy. But focusing here specifically on the draft, so we can go ahead and go back to the big board and see some of these players that are available. So you've still got some very excellent players in terms of pricing and in terms of high tiers. So we can go ahead and continue to wait on this a little bit. This might be a little bit of a longer video due to this, but again, as opposed to when you're a little bit more just aggressive, you're going to go ahead and build a core part of that roster pretty quickly. But when you're conservative, it's going to be at a latter part of the draft. Now, I will still try and get maybe one big named player, so we don't have that much of a drop in talent. And it's usually why I honestly avoid the conservative strategy in terms of drafting in an auction draft. But for the sake of trying it out, seeing what happens, we're going to go ahead and try and stick to that a little bit more so than we normally would. And again, it's all part of the trial and error process that I suggest you guys also go through to see what works for you and what doesn't. That's the great thing about these auction drafts. Once you know what platform you're drafting on, well, you can go ahead and get a bunch of practice and try out a bunch of different strategies and see what works best for you, what yields the best roster, and the type of strategy you are best going on with on your actual draft day. So with that being the case, let's see what has happened here with the last couple of selections and bids. Travis Kelce won for $46, Dalvin Cook for $56, Dak Prescott for $7, a little bit of a nomination run on quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson for $37. So again, just looking here maybe at a bigger picture, the auction summary, nothing too crazy in terms of what values these players went for. I would say the biggest one so far, the ones that stand out that I would highlight, Michael Thomas, because you can already see the price for Julio Jones is higher than what Michael Thomas went for. I would also point out Josh Jacobs, more so that ESPN just has him ranked lower. Now, again, I realize that this is a PPR scoring situation, so Josh Jacobs not necessarily as valuable as he would be in a standard scoring format. But Michael Thomas is definitely the big name where whoever landed him got incredible value. And, as nice as it is to see that, that's probably not what you're going to see during your actual draft day. But nonetheless, it serves as a good example to point out that you should be keeping consistently, pretty much every single second, an eye on this bidding process, because if you really just take your eyes off of it for a couple of seconds, then you can miss out a chance on getting a player at a great value, and that can be a true difference maker. So Julio Jones just went for $56. Again, that's kind of what you expect to see those top tier wide receivers go for. Devontae Adams here going to go for probably around the same range. And let's kind of check in to see how much funds are still on the table here. We obviously still have $200, but let's see how many other individuals also have $200 to work with. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 other teams with $200. So kind of about what I expected. But there's been a good distribution here in terms of spending, because the person with the lowest amount of funds is here at $70. It's nothing crazy like $50 or $40. So it's been spread out nicely. And David Johnson just got nominated here. The pricing is right around $31, $32. His pre-draft value at $27. Not a bad name to consider in PPR formats, being the primary running back there in Houston now. But again, we'll go ahead and wait. $32, not a bad price, but comparing him to some other running backs around that range that I would have just as much confidence in, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, and I think going ahead and going with some of those guys would not be a bad idea. James Conner, pointing him out. So, for example, ESPN here, their rankings for James Conner, I would say, haven't been updated, specifically in auction formats maybe, as much as they should be, because I would say the drop-off between Melvin Gordon and James Conner isn't all that much, but pretty much their pricing is half. Gordon at 25, James Conner at 13, that is a little bit crazy. So just highlighting that, go ahead. If you spot something like that in your own respective platform, take advantage of the situation. That's how you can go ahead and land some absolute steals on draft day. So you better believe James Conner is going to be someone that we go after hard. And the weird thing is, in a lot of platforms, in terms of snake draft, James Conner has gone up in those rankings, and heard those quote unquote analysts coming around to pretty much what we've said since the start of the season, that James Conner is in a great situation, that he's set up behind a great offensive line with the healthy Big Ben. He will have that volume and he can be an RB1. But it's our turn to go ahead and nominate someone. So let's go ahead and just do what we've preached before. Nominate a player that we're all right passing on. So for me, that'll be Allen Robinson here. Nothing against Allen Robinson, but it's the situation that I'm afraid of. It's one in Chicago where you don't really have a quarterback guaranteed. Is it going to be Nick Foles? Is it going to be Mitch Trubisky? And how high octane will that offense actually be? So for that reason, I am perfectly fine on passing on Allen Robinson. And just using it as an example, look, Allen Robinson is going to go here for $38. I know Michael Thomas was a one-off going for, I believe, $48. But you tell me I can get Michael Thomas for $10 more in an auction draft than Allen Robinson. That is absolutely insane. And I would take that every single day of the week. So I'm perfectly fine staying out of that bidding. I think Robinson is a player that's a little bit overpriced here. And what we will end up trying to do, we'll get in on the action here in a little bit. Derrick Henry was someone that was just nominated here. The bid is up to $58. So again, we'll stay out of this bid. I think when it comes to running backs, we'll shoot for that 40 to 30 range. Try and get maybe 2-3 of them and see what happens afterwards, and maybe get one big name wide receiver as well, and then a couple of high end wide receiver 2s, some wide receiver 3s with high upside as well. But again, Derrick Henry is going to be a name that we pass on. Same here with probably a Tyreek Hill. I anticipate his value will get close to that pre-draft value of $55. So let's again do a little bit of a budget check up. We have still got, I believe, so now only 2 other individuals with $200 left. And that kind of puts me a little bit at ease, because we've said it before, the maybe biggest backfire situation of a conservative draft strategy is that you can go ahead and really just hurt yourself if multiple people decide to do this, because then essentially if you guys have both just put off getting those top end players, well, you can go in a bidding war on a mid-level player and end up overpaying for them, and up to an amount that it would have been for that initial high-end player to begin with. So for that reason, that conservative strategy can backfire, and you have to be careful with it. That's why I usually tend to tell people, if you're just starting out in auction drafts, maybe that conservative strategy is one that you want to kind of avoid initially until you get some more experience, or maybe it can work for you if you're in a league that people are very aggressive and they will spend the majority of their funds early on. If that's the case, then being conservative can definitely play a huge role in you being successful. Now, Miles Sanders here just went for $56. That's a really high amount for Miles Sanders. I know there's a lot of hype for him, but going for $10 more than a Kenyon Drake or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that is a little bit concerning. Honestly, I'm probably going to wait until Clyde Edwards here gets nominated, because the truth is I'd be all right paying $46, maybe even $50 for a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, considering what his upside is, and that is, a surefire top 10 running back. But we'll see. Oh, I guess we don't have to wait long, because he was just nominated here. And I'm sure that this will get up to that $45 range pretty quickly, as you can see. I'm going to get in on it as well, but we'll see. At some point, we will probably bow out. So $43. I'll go up to $45, see what happens. Yeah, so as you can see, you've got one person on auto pick here that's probably going to win the bet. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and bid one more dollar for 47 bucks. All things considered, I think $47, like I told you, for Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't all that bad. And I'm all right landing him for 47 bucks. Huge upside. So that could be maybe our one high-end player. And from there, we try and build depth. We'll see how that turns out. Because again, there's going to be some players that are overpriced, some that are underpriced. Right now, I would say if we can go ahead, land a Leonard Fournette, land a Todd Gurley, or maybe swap out one of those for a James Conner and see how that works out. Initially, you have got 3 starting running backs, also on 3 different teams, obviously. But that's something that I'll also point out. Obviously, it doesn't apply for running backs, but stacking this year, it might be intriguing. I usually recommend it if it's a high octane offense, but then you start to question, well, what happens if there is a COVID outbreak on one of these teams that you have stacked players on and multiple guys are out for 2 to 3 weeks? That can really hurt you and impact a large portion of your starting roster. So again, something to think about. Maybe stacking players from the same team not as advisable as it once was this year. It's really a year, again, I'll say it, I keep harping on it, a year unlike any other. If there's anybody out there telling you they know what it's going to be like, that's just impossible. That's not true, because there's going to be twists and turns at every single point in the season, and it'll be very intriguing, and we'll see what happens. Calvin Ridley is a player here that I find pretty interesting. His draft value of $22, a little bit too high in my opinion. I mean, I definitely think that the talent is there, but just because we're trying to be a little bit more conservative, I can go ahead and, potentially get a Cooper Kupp or a Robert Woods for right around that same value, a Keenan Allen, a T.Y. Hilton. So I'll go ahead and be a little bit less aggressive right now and wait until I add another player, getting a Devontae Parker for $14, getting a DJ Shark for $14. I think those are all valid picks as well. A Julian Edelman for $4. That absolutely is a value that has not been updated to the situation. All those guys in New England should have their value higher than it is right now, especially in these auction drafts. So he can be someone that we target. Mike Evans is a player that I've always hyped up, but assuming that this gets to the projected $47 mark, I'm going to stay out of this one. If there's a wide receiver that we can potentially target here, it still in the wide receiver 1 category, maybe an Amari Cooper, maybe an Adam Thielen, but again, those guys will get close to that $40 mark. So yeah, already Mike Evans is at $48. So something that I do notice here is that with the auction process in ESPN, something that really just kind of popped up is you really don't see guys overbidding too much here. And what that tells you essentially is that either it's a situation where the way they have their auto bid process configured is to not be that aggressive, but in places like Yahoo, for example, you'll consistently see guys overbid by $3, $4, $5, $6 on what the listed price is, and I think that's much more accurate, which is to some extent why I prefer trying out all these different platforms. And I would say right now, Todd Gurley going for $32 might be the first example. $33 now, I should say, 34. Wow. Okay, this is really the first kind of example where a player is going for, substantially more than what he was projected. So I believe for $6 more. So that's intriguing, but pretty much everyone else was pretty similar to what their projected value was, I would point out. Now we'll see what the value here, what happens with Nick Chubb, whether it will get up to that $44 amount, how much higher it will get than that $44 amount as well. But Yes. The thing with Nick Chubb for me that's always had me a little bit hesitant is the presence of Kareem Hunt. Throw in a PPR format as well, and I kind of just say, all right, I'm all right passing on Nick Chubb. So that's why I'm going to stay out of this bidding process in particular. But let's look at some of these other players and continue to break down these nominations, talk some strategies, because that's what we can go ahead and do now when we are being a little bit more conservative, taking our time. And since we are taking our time right now, what I will do is I will fill out, here the majority of our starting roster, but I won't fill out the entire thing because, nobody wants to see a 2-3 hour video, which is how long some of these actual drafts can take. But it's our turn to nominate someone. Let's go ahead and nominate a player that we think someone will overpay for, that, again, we don't really have all that much interest in. For me, that is someone like an Aaron Jones. I'm all right passing on Aaron Jones. I've said it before, I think there's going to be a decline there. I think that the mentality with the Green Bay Packers is to have a bit of a running back by committee. So that's why Aaron Jones kind of worries me. He was extremely inconsistent last season as well. So I'm all right passing on him for 2020. And you can see that that bid has already gotten to that $44 amount. So kudos to the person that landed him at $44. It's not us. I don't have a problem with it. It'd be very tempting to go after someone like a Kenyon Drake or an Austin Eckler. But again, it's a fine line in between spending too much early, trying to build depth, addressing other positions like wide receiver, like tight end. So keep all these things in mind. They all play a factor. Maybe I will go ahead and try and still land one of these higher end running backs, because in the same breath, you don't want to go ahead and have money left over, which if you guys saw our first auction draft where we were admittedly a little bit more aggressive, by the end of it, we probably still had maybe $10 or $15 left over. And that was one of the things that I was saying. Even though I really liked our roster, we could definitely improve on. So for that reason, I'm going to try and, even though by being conservative and waiting and trying to get value, trying to get depth, to maximize our funds, which is at the core of this, what an auction draft is, to make the most of your funds and to get the most bang for your buck, if you will. So I'll go ahead and get in on this bidding for Kenyon Drake. He's a player that I really like. We'll see how high this goes up, and whether it's worth it. For $40, I'll go ahead and $41 now, I guess, would be the price. Let's see if someone goes higher than that. Yes, of course. And I do think it's worth pointing out that we officially don't have anyone at $200 anymore in terms of their own personal budgets. So I'll do one last bid here at $44. I wasn't sure if I got it in, and we'll see if anybody one-ups me, and it looks like no. We go ahead and land Kenyon Drake. So okay, we've got two players, two high-end running backs. So I still think we can go ahead and go by a conservative strategy here. Again, it'll just mean that we're not in the running for an Austin Eckler or for a Chris Carson or a Leonard Fournette. I'm interested to see how much Austin Eckler will go for, because you could say that he's pretty comparable to Kenyon Drake. So him going here for $40, kudos to the player that landed him at that value. $4 cheaper than Kenyon Drake. Sure, he does have some more question marks with the quarterback situation with the Chargers, but again, he's got that high ceiling, that pass catching ability, no more Melvin Gordon, so I like that. What we'll end up doing here, again, if we want to build depth, I'm going to target James Conner. I'm going to target David Montgomery. Those are both guys right around the $10 mark that are starters and that will have high volume. And, we have $109 right now. So theoretically, if we land both of those guys, assuming that the bidding doesn't get too high for either of them, then we'll be right around that $90 range, a little bit less than that. And then we'll still have about, $85 to $90 to build out starting wide receivers, things like that, a quarterback. And I've said this before, but the way quarterbacks are priced out here, very, very cheap. So again, that plays to our benefit here when we want to be conservative. You know, a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees, and Matt Ryan, they are all valued at $1, and that's pretty crazy. You know, Cam Newton, $0. That's insane. So just keep that in mind. And a player that we mentioned here before at the wide receiver position, Adam Thielen, is someone that will probably be out of the running for. We, instead of going that higher end wide receiver one, we decided to add another running back with a Kenyon Drake, which again I don't have a problem with. You can make the case that, you know, obviously running back is the more important position, so it's of good value, and for that reason I'm okay with it. Let's look at some of those other wide receivers that we could potentially target. Kenny Golladay going for $31 right before this was pretty good value, actually, all things considered. So James Conner, here is the guy that we mentioned. So whoever nominated him, Team 10, I believe, is probably going to get in on this bidding. And I was honestly hoping that we would wait until, you know, a little bit later on until James Conner's name showed up. But it is what it is, and we'll go ahead and nominate him, or I should say bid on him. And again, man, the price has gotten up to $16, $17. Yeah, 17. If we want to be conservative, this thing will probably get to $20. We can still land a David Montgomery. Yeah, okay. So James Conner, another example of someone clearly the public sees that the value is there and that he is extremely underpriced. So I can appreciate this. I can appreciate the fact that other individuals that we're drafting with can go ahead and identify this. Now, obviously, it hurts us in terms of building up the most depth with high quality players, but that's all right. We can still build depth nonetheless. There's still other running backs here. You know, like I mentioned with a David Montgomery for $9. Are you kidding me? I would take that all day. And he won't get up to that $24 range, but we'll see. Because I believe Connor was valued for $13. He went for $11 more. His value is pretty much doubled. So again, what we said earlier on, that James Conner and Melvin Gordon should be valued pretty similarly, kind of holds true here in terms of what actually ended up happening. Let's see what other running backs are underneath David Montgomery that we would be all right taking a chance on. You know, Mark Ingram is someone, I don't like the situation in Baltimore, but for $7, you know, you kind of buy into it then, that it's pretty good value. Marlon Mack is someone that he plays this year. He at $1 is going to be a great value. He should have a leg up on Jonathan Taylor to begin with. So I like that value as well. Let's look at some wide receivers here before, which is what we were going to do before the James Conner nomination, to kind of point out what guys that we could potentially target. And again, pretty similar to before. I like these guys in the $20 range. They have a lot of upside. In terms of who here is left with the biggest upside, you know, you could point to Amari Cooper, to Juju Smith, to DJ Moore, but they're going to be about twice the price in terms of that $20 range that we were looking at before. So we can go ahead and sit that one out. We don't necessarily have to land those guys. It's pretty easy to build depth at the wide receiver position here, especially in these auction drafts. So George Kittle just got nominated. The other obviously big name tight end went for $31. Not a bad value, all things considered. That, let's see. I'm actually curious to see how much Travis Kelce went for. He went for $46. George Kittle went for $15 less. Now, I know Kelce is regarded as the number one tight end, but with Deebo Samuel dealing with his injury and potentially starting the year unavailable, George Kittle going for $15 less than Travis Kelce is a very good deal. And let's again quickly do a budget checkup in terms of where we stand. So we are actually sitting pretty in second place. There's only one team here that unfortunately is on auto pick that has more money than us at $162. But other than that, we are in second place, so we can actually get some of these guys at good value and you just see this Cooper Kupp nomination. I'll get in on this bidding because he was a wide receiver that we pointed out. PPR, high ceiling, and we'll see how high it gets. I anticipate that it'll get higher than the pre-draft value of $21. The question is how much higher, or maybe not. We'll see. I'm going to go ahead and potentially be the winning bid at $21. Well, I guess not. Well, like I said before, there's other players here in a Robert Woods, but let's go ahead and make that $23 bet. I wonder how much higher this will get. $24. I'll go ahead and pass. We can go ahead and land Robert Woods at $24, $25 when some of these people have less money, and I think we could potentially even get him at a good value, at a lesser value in terms of what he is projected at, because that's really when you get to this range where the majority of people are under $100 that you can take advantage of these situations. And it's our turn to nominate a player. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's select A.J. Brown. Let's see if we were able to nominate him in time. Yes, we were. He's a player that we're not really interested in PPR formats. His pre-draft value right around that $20 mark. So again, we'll get somebody else to spend that amount, and then that player won't be able to really contend with us when someone that we actually want is nominated. So it looks like the winning bid will be $24. It looks like it was right about to be for that $23 mark, and that's all right because here it's actually a player that's still not on auto pick, so that's nice for them to go ahead and deplete their funds a little bit. So at this point, wide receivers, let's go ahead and do another reevaluation. We're looking at Robert Woods, him potentially being our wide receiver one. We're looking at a Keenan Allen. We're looking at a T.Y. Hilton. And, those guys are all around the $20 mark. So if we can land two of them, then land a Devontae Parker, land a Julian Edelman, land a Brendan Cooks, land a, what are there some other names here with some talent? Maybe, a Jalen Reagor, maybe a Justin Jefferson, some rookies, maybe a Tyler Boyd, a Jamison Crowder even. I really like the value there. DJ Moore just went for $37. So again, we're going to stay out of that range of players because we would still like to get some more depth, especially at the running back position, which I think will be hit harder in terms of guys sitting out, guys missing time on the IR list, on the COVID list, than the wide receiver position. Because, with the wide receivers, well, you've got multiple of them. So, just because the wide receiver one gets COVID or something like that and isn't available, while the wide receiver 2, the wide receiver 3, the wide receiver 4 can still all step up. Whereas with the running backs, unless it's a running back by committee, it's gonna be one single person that replaces that production. So here with Amari Cooper getting up to $35, we're gonna sit out of it. I know it's tough to do, but it will pay off. If you think about it here, we've gone conservative, but you could argue we've gotten 2 first-round running backs, and that's extremely valuable. So from there on out, man, we're actually, I would say we're sitting pretty here. We've put ourselves in a very good position to get depth because consider, a guy like a Chris Carson just got nominated, and we're still looking at names like a Leonard Fournette. I was talking about getting a David Montgomery, and of course, Leonard Fournette immediately gets nominated. What I was going to say was that if a little bit more time passes until Leonard Fournette gets nominated, then you could get a good value on him. But that won't be the case now because obviously he was the immediate pick afterwards, but that's all right. Like I said, we've already got 2 first-round running backs arguably on our roster at the most important position. So we will sit out on this Leonard Fournette sweepstakes. And I can officially say that we have the most amount of money left. So that's pretty nice. We'll go ahead and pretty much dominate and dictate how this bidding goes. because, yeah, at this point, we are about, let me double check, we're about $20 clear of the next closest person who is at that $91 mark. Other people on average around $50, $60. You see it here. 43, 35, 78, 22, 68, 68, 16, 53, 30, 19, 57. Melvin Gordon, another good player to go ahead and nominate and kind of get out of the way if you don't want someone spending $23 on him. We will go ahead and build our depth at the running back position. Get a David Montgomery, potentially get a Ronald Jones is an interesting name, because even though the Bucs added a LaShawn McCoy, they've said that Ronald Jones will get the bulk of the work to begin with, so he's going to have the leg up. Now, the question in terms of how long that will last, it's tough to answer, but I don't really see the addition of LaShawn McCoy impacting things too much for whoever ends up being the RB1 for the Bucs, whether it's Jones or Keyshawn Vaughn. So keep that in mind. Zach Ertz just went for $16, and here we go. David Montgomery being nominated, so this is one that we're going to want to win. And let's see what it will get up to. Team 12, it looks like, is in on this as well. And we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth. I can already tell you guys. I've got that feeling. But guess what? We are the title holders in terms of the highest budget left. So spending $3 more, it's all right. We have got our running back depth compared to, probably some other teams here. We've got a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we've got a Kenyon Drake, we've got a David Montgomery. I'll go ahead and add some wide receivers here and there and sprinkle them in so that, David Montgomery could even be someone on the bench. Spending $23, $24 for Le'Veon Bell, I'll go ahead and pass on that. Let's look at some of these other running backs. Mark Ingram for $7. As much as I don't think that Ingram will duplicate what he did in Baltimore, in the addition of J.K. Dobbins hurts, and Lamar Jackson being there hurts, $7 is a good deal, folks. Raheem Mostert, $6. Again, I've said before, running back by committee in San Francisco, it's going to be on and off between Mostert and Coleman. But $6, not a bad value. Darius Geis for $4. Hey, if he can stay healthy, what's going to happen there? James White for $4 with Cam Newton there. That's interesting. Marlon Mack, Sony Michel. Yeah, these are all very intriguing names here. Now, Keenan Allen just got nominated. We can potentially get in on this because we need a wide receiver. Now, I will point out that even after that David Montgomery pick, we still have the most amount of money left. So that's pretty nice to see here. Keenan Allen going to go for right around $20. The question is, do you want to pay up? It's a PPR format league. I'll go ahead and make the nomination, or I'll make the bid. If someone outbids us here over $20, so be it. I'm all right with not landing him, but we go ahead and land him nonetheless. So this roster is starting to take shape. We've got Keenan Allen, and we'll start to go ahead and land some other players. Let's go ahead and nominate a player that we're all right again passing on in Terry McLaurin because of the situation in Washington. We don't know who the quarterback is. We know who the quarterback will be in Dwayne Haskins, but we don't know what type of production we will get from him. So for that reason, I'm all right passing on Terry McLaurin. But again, and I will continue to point this out, even with our drafting of Keenan Allen, we are still in first place in terms of money left. And I guess we should say we're tied for first place, but we will be in lone first place again after the selection of Terry McLaurin. And we'll be able to go ahead and clean up on some of these players and build that depth. Now, in terms of what the end product will look like, I'll leave that up to you guys in terms of debating whether this was a strategy that ultimately was successful or not when we add a couple more players, and whether you think you would be better off going high-end players first and hitting that often. Again, there's going to be a lot of debate on it. It comes down to essentially personal preference, but us if you ask my opinion on the matter, so far I like the way this is worked out. Wide receiver, we don't have that high end wide receiver, but we'll have depth at running back. We'll have a good choice of a tight end. I really like a Darren Waller. Let's see the price on him. $9, so keep that in mind. I like a Robert Woods. This is going to be one guy that I will pay up for. Oh, and apparently I missed my chance to do so because he just went for $24. I don't know if there was a little bit of a glitch or something like that, but okay, it is what it is. We've got other options. We've got a Devontae Parker, we've got a T.Y. Hilton, we've got a Julian Edelman, so I'm not too worried, really. Worth that $78 mark. We'll live to fight another day. No worries, folks. It happens sometimes. DeAndre Swift just went for $11. Tyler Lockett, we could potentially get in on that, but I'd rather go with a T.Y. Hilton. I think that there's more upside there. There will be some more consistency there as well. He is the clear-cut #1 wide receiver. Bring Phillip Rivers into town as well, and I'm all in. DJ Chark is still there. Devontae Parker. So even though we don't have that upper echelon wide receiver 1, I'll say it again. We'll also have depth at the wide receiver position. So we've built depth at the running back position. We've built depth at the wide receiver position. Now, I guess we haven't built the depth yet since we still haven't drafted T.Y. Hilton or some other guys, but we will. Don't worry. And this is kind of going back and forth, but we'll end up winning this. Don't worry about that. We are in a good place. We will land T.Y. Hilton at $18 here. Yep, just like we said. And we have got our wide receiver #2, who I would say has wide receiver 1 potential as well. Now, it's been a while, but we are no longer in first place in terms of our budget. Team 3 does have a little bit more money than us, but trust us, the running back depth has kind of formed. The wide receiver situation will continue to get worked out. We've got enough money to land our preferred tight end as well. This is going to work out nicely. This will work out nicely, and we can even potentially, even after highlighting it again, wind up with a little bit extra funds left over. But again, this is one of the hardest things to perfect with these auction drafts. Getting that final, amount of budget as close to zero as possible. That is an art. You can't do it every single time, but it's all about maximizing it and just getting, again, the most bang for your buck, especially in these auction drafts. Jarvis Landry, I'm going to let this one slide. I'm all right passing on him. I'd rather get, a Devontae Parker, and with people not certain, okay, is it going to be Fitzpatrick? Is it going to be Tua? I still personally think it'll be Fitzpatrick. I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that with no preseason, no things like that, that at least Fitzpatrick will start off the season as the quarterback. To me, Fitzpatrick obviously has the higher ceiling in terms of the offensive weapons and what they'll do. I personally still believe that Tua will end up, if he does play, not play the majority of the season. So I like Devontae Parker. DJ Chark just got nominated. We can go ahead and potentially get in on this bidding as well. We'll see how high up it gets. This will be interesting. I'll go ahead and throw in a bid there. Get it up to $11. Oh, okay, and immediately went up to $12. So, okay, it is what it is. Let's see if we can get that last second snipe in at $13. And then also land a Devontae Parker. That would be nice. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead. We'll make this work, folks. Yeah. So Kareem Hunt just got nominated. Not a bad player to look at. But we'll wait this one out. We still want to draft our tight end. I'll go ahead because at this point we've gotten through the majority of this draft, and it doesn't matter too much here. I don't want to wait forever to build out the core of this roster. We can potentially nominate Darren Waller next and go ahead and land him. I'll point out here for Kareem Hunt, the bidding has gone up $4 over his pre-draft value. So again, another player that the public clearly sees is undervalued. Or potentially it could be a case where someone waited a little bit too long to get a flex running back or a second running back, and they had to settle for Kareem Hunt and maybe overpay for him because there was other interest as well. But let's go ahead, keep going through this. In terms of our starting roster, other than quarterback and tight end, we've got it taken care of. We've got 3 running backs. We've got 2 starting wide receivers, another one on the bench. We'll go ahead and add Devontae Parker. We'll add Julian Edelman. So to build that wide receiver depth, we'll go ahead. Actually, what I will do here, instead of going Darren Waller, because it'll be a little bit, he's going to get nominated sooner or later. I'll go ahead and nominate a guy like a Marlon Mack. I'll go ahead and nominate him, or I was going to even say Mark Ingram or Raheem Mostert, but perfect. Someone nominated Mark Ingram for us. We'll see how much higher this gets than the pre-draft value of $7. And, these are the points where you have to ask yourself, would you rather have Mark Ingram or Raheem Mostert? Honestly, I'd rather have a Raheem Mostert because you don't have that rushing threat from Jimmy Garoppolo like you do with Lamar Jackson. Sure, you've got Tevin Coleman over there, but I think Raheem Mostert will have more opportunities. You also have to worry about J.K. Dobbins with Mark Ingram there. So just keep all those things in mind still. So Mark Andrews just got nominated. Let's go ahead and see how high this will end up going. But no, for the most part, the values are staying true to what we're seeing. He goes for $8. We're at $47. Like I said, we are in 3rd place in terms of our budget, but we should still be able to land the guys that we want and get that depth. So, yeah. And I guess I didn't even realize that it was us that nominated Mark Andrews. I was wondering who nominated him, but it was us. We kind of missed our chance to nominate someone, but it's okay. There will still be guys that come up that we can go ahead and target. So Ronald Jones gets nominated here. And for the most part, it's going through either running backs or just people off the top of the list that are still left. Devontae Parker, I anticipate, will be the next player to be nominated. We'll go ahead and get in on that and draft him. So that'll be nice to do. Yep, there you go. You see it. And you can see that our max bid is $38. So we're good. We're sitting pretty. We can go ahead and get in on this. And maybe Devontae Parker, you'll see this go higher than the $14. We'll see. But I'm all right overpaying. Like I said, we've got the money, so we can go ahead and do it. And yeah, we won't even have to overpay. We get him for the exact pre-draft value. So we continue to add depth. And here we go. Another player that we wanted to land, Darren Waller. I anticipate that we will be able to land him as well. So let's go ahead and get him. I like his upside in PPR formats. And I still think he will have a large target share over there for the Raiders, even with the addition of someone like a Ruggs. So, right at the end, someone swoops in, but that's all right. We mean business here. We're going to land Darren Waller. Don't worry about it. Because if it's between us and Team 5, we've got $11 more, so we're going to get our guy. And yes, we did. We have got Darren Waller. So, folks, we're getting towards, the conclusion of this. Our bench so far includes a DJ Shark. It includes a Devontae Parker. I could potentially even land someone like a DK Metcalf, but I would rather go ahead and land a Julian Edelman, who I think will end up being bid up higher than that $4 amount. So keep that in mind. As far as running backs, also Raheem Mostert, we can go ahead and nominate him. But once it gets to us, we'll go ahead and nominate a quarterback. And hey, potentially we can do something a little bit differently here. What I usually do is I say, all right, I'm perfectly fine getting a Matt Ryan, something like that. But hey, if you want to go ahead and get that quarterback running back stack, it could be Kyler Murray. Now, I realize that would be going against what I said in terms of stacking players from the same team. So you could get into that debate. It's going to be very hard to predict. If you want to insure yourself, well, honestly, we have enough money to draft both Kyler Murray and one of those other quarterbacks, so we could potentially do that, honestly. And it might be what we end up doing. So We could potentially add Kyler Murray, who a lot of people will be are saying is the next Lamar, is the next Patrick Mahomes, and then also get a proven veteran guy like a Drew Brees, like a Matt Ryan, like a Tom Brady. So there you go. That might be what we end up doing. And I was going to say, even though our first wide receiver drafted was Keenan Allen, I would say we did pretty well with depth over there. We've got Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, DJ Shark, and Devontae Parker. So we've got enough ammunition to have some flexibility there to potentially make some trades, do something like that. So again, just pointing that out. And we've got 3 stable running backs here with CEH, with Drake, and with Montgomery. And we'll also go ahead and try and add another one with a Mostert or a Marlon Mack, like we pointed out. Marquis Brown here just got nominated. He'll go for about $8. Yep, that's exactly the case. And I'm just waiting until someone nominates, one of those quarterbacks that we said. There goes Deshaun Watson. I'm not gonna draft him. I was waiting for Kyler Murray, but his name will also be, flashing here on the screen shortly. I anticipate with a run on quarterbacks, I think we're going to see soon. So in terms of how we are faring with the competition as far as our budget is concerned, I think we are now we are in 4th place. Oh, there goes Kyler Murray, like we said. So we can go ahead and get in on this pretty quickly. Our max bid is still $16, so we're looking pretty here, folks. We can get in on it. There we go, $5. Let's see if we win this, or if we'll have to go a little bit higher. That'll be interesting. But getting Kyler Murray for $5 is a great deal. But again, I'll point out this does not happen in Yahoo. I just point that out because I've done enough auction drafts over there to tell you that Kyler Murray is going to go for over $10. He could go between $15 and $20 even. So keep all these things in mind. We're down to $18. And honestly, at first I was kind of worried that we might have some funds left over. But I think we're going to get under $10. And when you can get under $10, close to $5, I consider that a victory as far as auction drafts are concerned. And it'll be almost our turn to nominate someone. And the guy that I'm going to want to nominate is Julian Edelman. And then we can kind of go ahead and wrap this thing up. Or maybe we can go ahead and nominate another quarterback just for some depth there as well. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that's a possibility. Going Raheem Mostert is another possibility. So all these things are on the table. Michael Gallup here is the nomination. I'm just going to go ahead and scroll to Julian Edelman. He's the guy that I want to go ahead and bring up. Yeah, that's going to be the guy that we go with. Deebo Samuel here, with the expectation that he's going to miss the start of the season. $6 is too expensive, honestly, I would say. So yeah, this will get up to $10. It is our turn to nominate. Let's go ahead and select Julian Edelman, nominate him, and then go ahead and land him. That's how this has worked pretty much so far today. We've done a pretty good job of getting the guys that we want. So let's continue to bid. The one person maybe that I wish that we could have landed was Robert Woods, that we just kind of missed out barely on, or just, I guess, weren't paying enough attention. But it's all right. You could argue that if we decided not to go depth, that we could have gotten a top-end wide receiver, so that maybe instead of having spent $20 on Keenan Allen and then another, 18 and another 13 on Hilton and then on DJ Shark, we could have landed a Julio Jones. But then the problem is, well, who's your wide receiver 2? What happens there? I realize we still have Devontae Parker and Julian Edelman, but not as much depth. So again, it's a hindsight situation here in terms of when you commit to a strategy. And honestly, sometimes why I say when you commit to a strategy, you kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball and don't allow yourself some flexibility. Now, obviously here we're doing it for the sake of the exercise because we want to specifically see what kind of roster this yields. But usually it's obviously better to be more flexible with that. Now, let's go ahead and start kind of grading this team because it's not a guarantee that we're going to go ahead and get to our next nomination. So I want to give you guys a grade for this roster in terms of how the strategy worked out, in terms of how much money we still have left. Now, starting with our core part of the roster, Kyler Murray, got him here for cheap $5. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kenyon Drake. I would say we actually, when we drafted these guys, I was worried that we wouldn't be able to still stay conservative, but we did a pretty good job. I think we kind of knocked the ball out of the park in terms of our running backs and how we approach that. Both round one type of guys, Clyde Edwards, Kenyon Drake, then getting David Montgomery as well. We need to add one more running back is the thing that stands out to me. But in terms of these guys, I love it. I think our running back situation is an A. Honestly, I do. Then wide receiver. Obviously, we don't have that big name wide receiver, but we should be okay with Keenan Allen, with T.Y. Hilton, with Shark, with Parker, with Edelman. A lot of options there. So I like how that worked out. Grading that positional group, probably a B-, something like that. Tight end, Darren Waller, I really like that. And here we go. Raheem Mostert is just nominated, so we'll quickly go ahead and hopefully land him as well. Well, I guess if it goes over $8, we won't be able to land him, but we'll see. So right now we've got the bid at $7. Will we be able to land him? Probably. I think so. Yes, we will. There we go. So we got our next running back, and we are sitting pretty. We are under $10. I really like the way this worked out, folks. The next thing I was going to point out was how much money we have left over. We've got under $10 left. That is the goal. Obviously, we still got some spots to fill out, but you know, a couple more bench spots. Defense and kicker. Honestly, you don't even have to draft. You can go ahead and just pick up off waivers. The way I would fill out my bench from here would be getting another quarterback, getting another tight end, and then pretty much calling it a day afterwards. But tight end, I like the upside for Waller. Flex with Montgomery, I like that. He's going to have a lot of volume. DJ Shark, Devontae Parker, our bench is loaded with depth, which is, you know, from the start of this video, kind of what we said. That's how we wanted to approach this. Focus on depth, and we were able to do that with Shark, with Parker, with Edelman, with Mostert. So even though we don't have that high-end wide receiver, we have plenty of depth at wide receiver, and all guys that can be wide receiver 2s, I would say at the lowest, and then also some wide receiver 1 potential. So I really like that. Tight end, I like it. So overall, also adding Raheem Mostert for even more depth, I would probably grade this team. The one thing that I wish we could have done better is maybe, again, sacrifice some of this depth for a high-end wide receiver. But since we decided to be a little bit more conservative, I'm not blaming us too much for that. I'm not docking too many points. So I'll give this roster a B+. And if we factor the depth into it and how much we were able to go ahead and stay close to what we wanted to do in terms of being conservative, then maybe we go B+, A- type of situation. But I like the way this turned out. Let me hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree? What did you think about this approach? And would this be something you go ahead and do, especially with the situation being what it is right now in the NFL with COVID, and, you know, whether the conservative strategy maybe has a little bit more validity this year in auction drafts or not, or if you'll still go ahead and be a little bit more aggressive. But overall, we fared pretty well. We're down to $6. We'll get pretty close to that $0 amount. If you guys have any other questions, let us hear it in the comments as well. And as always, again, quick reminder, go ahead, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. Get yourself a copy of the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.